They whispered behind my back at my cousin's wedding, pointing at my secondhand dress and laughing because I couldn't afford designer shoes like them. But when the most powerful man in the city walked straight through the crowd of socialites and whispered in my ear, "I've been looking for you, everywhere," their mocking laughter died in their throats. What happened next left the entire wedding speechless and changed my life forever. If you've ever felt invisible or looked down on because of money, this story will give you chills. Hit that subscribe button right now, because what unfolds when true character meets true love will restore your faith in justice and leave you absolutely breathless. My name is Sophia, and until that Saturday evening in September, I was just another invisible face in the crowd. A 26-year-old librarian who lived paycheck to paycheck in a tiny studio apartment downtown. I loved my job at the children's library more than anything in the world, but it didn't exactly pay enough for designer gowns or luxury lifestyles. When my cousin Valentina's wedding invitation arrived, embossed in gold and practically dripping with expensive elegance, I almost didn't go. Valentina and I had grown up together, but we drifted apart over the years as her family's construction business boomed and my family struggled after my father's accident left him unable to work. The wedding was being held at the exclusive Grandview estate, the kind of place where valet parking cost more than my monthly grocery budget. I'd spent weeks agonizing over what to wear, finally settling on a beautiful vintage burgundy dress I'd found at a thrift shop and carefully altered myself. It wasn't designer, but it was elegant and made me feel confident. I should have known that wouldn't be enough. The moment I walked into the marble-floored reception hall, I felt the stares. Valentina's new social circle, wives of developers, daughters of city councilmen, socialites who spent more on handbags than I made in 3 months, immediately began their whispered assessments. "Is that Sophia? Oh my God, look at that dress. I heard she works at the library. How quaint." Valentina said she takes the bus everywhere. Can you imagine? Their words cut deeper than I wanted to admit, but I held my head high and made my way to the assigned seating chart. My heart sank when I saw my name at table 9, tucked away in the corner behind a decorative column, far from the family tables where I should have been seated. The table was filled with distant relatives and +1s who clearly didn't want to be there. I smiled politely and tried to make conversation, but the message was clear. I was an afterthought, someone to be hidden away so as not to embarrass the bride's new elevated status. During the cocktail hour, things got worse. Valentina's maid of honor, Celine, seemed to take particular pleasure in making sure I knew I didn't belong. She made loud comments about how some people just don't understand dress codes for high-end events, all while looking directly at me. When I tried to congratulate Valentina, she gave me the quickest, coldest hug possible before turning away to greet more important guests. I was seriously considering leaving when the ballroom doors opened and everything changed. A man walked in who made the entire room fall silent. He was tall, probably in his mid-30s, with dark hair and the kind of presence that commanded attention without effort. His perfectly tailored black tuxedo probably cost more than my rent for 6 months. But it wasn't his clothes that made everyone stare. It was his unmistakable aura of power and success. The whispers started immediately. Is that Gabriel Reyes? The Gabriel Reyes? The tech billionaire? What's he doing here? I didn't know Valentina knew him. Oh my God, he's even more handsome in person. I recognized the name, of course. Gabriel Reyes had built a technology empire from nothing, becoming one of the youngest billionaires in the country. He was known for his innovative companies and his generous philanthropy, but also for being intensely private about his personal life. But here's what confused everyone in that room, including me. Gabriel wasn't walking toward the head table where Valentina and her new husband were seated. He wasn't stopping to greet the wealthy guests who were practically falling over themselves to get his attention. His dark eyes were scanning the room like he was searching for someone specific. And when his gaze found me, sitting alone at my forgotten table in the corner, he smiled. Not the polite smile you give to strangers, but a warm, genuine smile that made my heart skip. Before I could process what was happening, he was walking straight toward me. With each step he took, the room grew quieter. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Expensive champagne glasses paused halfway to lips. Every eye in the ballroom was tracking his movement toward my little corner table. When Gabriel stopped directly in front of my chair, you could have heard a pin drop in that massive room. "Sophia," he said, his voice warm and certain. "I've been looking for you everywhere." My brain felt like it had short-circuited. This incredibly successful, powerful man knew my name? He'd been looking for me? I glanced around frantically, wondering if he had me confused with someone else, but his eyes never wavered from mine. "I'm sorry," I managed to whisper, acutely aware that hundreds of people were hanging on our every word. "Do we know each other?" Gabriel's smile widened as he pulled out the chair next to mine and sat down, completely ignoring the shocked gasps from around the room. "We met 3 months ago at the Children's Literacy Foundation fundraiser. You were volunteering in the reading corner." Suddenly, the memory came flooding back. The foundation had hosted a big donor event, and while all the wealthy patrons mingled upstairs with champagne and hors d'oeuvres, I'd volunteered to stay in the children's area to read to the kids whose parents had brought them to the event, but then basically ignored them while they networked. I remembered spending hours on that colorful carpet, surrounded by picture books, making sure every child felt included and entertained. There had been one little girl, Emma, who was shy and overwhelmed by all the fancy adults. I'd sat with her for over an hour, reading her favorite story about a brave princess and helping her color in a dragon coloring book. "You sat on the floor in your blue dress," Gabriel continued, his voice carrying clearly through the silent ballroom. "And you didn't care that you were getting marker stains on it. You made that little girl, Emma, laugh for the first time all evening. You treated those children like they were the most important people in the world." My heart was pounding. I did remember seeing a man in an expensive suit lingering near the children's area that night, but I'd been so focused on the kids that I hadn't paid much attention. "I watched you for 2 hours, Gabriel said, and I could feel every person in that wedding reception hanging on his words. "I watched how you never once looked toward the main event upstairs. You never seemed to care about the networking opportunities or the wealthy donors. You were completely devoted to making sure those kids had a good time." I felt my cheeks burning with embarrassment and something else, a flutter of something that might have been hope. "I tried to talk to you that night," Gabriel continued, "but you left early to take Emma home when her parents forgot about her. I spent the last 3 months trying to find you. All I had was your first name and the image of the kindest person I'd ever seen." The room was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat echoing in my ears. I glanced over at Valentina, who looked like she was about to faint. Her perfect wedding was no longer the center of attention, and I could see the shock and something that looked like jealousy warring in her expression. But Gabriel wasn't finished. He stood up suddenly, and my breath caught as he reached into his jacket pocket. When his hand emerged, he was holding a small velvet box that made the entire room gasp collectively. "Sophia," he said, dropping to one knee right there in front of everyone. "I know this is unconventional. I know we've only really just met. But that night at the foundation, you showed me something I've been searching for my entire life." He opened the box, revealing the most stunning ring I'd ever seen. An elegant emerald surrounded by diamonds that caught the ballroom lights like captured stars. "You showed me what pure kindness looks like," Gabriel continued, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was doing. "What it means to care more about others' happiness than your own comfort. What real beauty, the kind that comes from the heart, actually is." The silence in the room was deafening. I could feel hundreds of pairs of eyes boring into me, waiting for my response. My mind was reeling. This was impossible. This was insane. This was like something out of a movie. "I've dated actresses and models and socialites," Gabriel said, his eyes never leaving mine. "But I've never met anyone who made me want to be a better person the way you did in just those few hours I watched you with those children. I don't want to spend another day wondering if you might give me a chance." He took a shaky breath. "Will you marry me, Sophia? Will you let me spend the rest of my life trying to deserve someone as beautiful inside and out as you?" The ballroom felt like it was spinning. Through the shock and disbelief, I remembered that night at the foundation more clearly now. I remembered the feeling that someone was watching me with genuine interest. I remembered glancing up once and seeing a man across the room who seemed different from the others, more real, somehow. And I remembered the tiny disappointment I'd felt when I couldn't find him again before I left. "Yes," I whispered, then louder as my voice found strength. "Yes, I'll marry you, Mary." The room exploded. People were cheering, crying, applauding, taking pictures with their phones. Gabriel slipped the ring onto my finger with hands that were trembling slightly, and it fit perfectly. He stood and pulled me into his arms, and I felt like I was living in a fairy tale. But not everyone was celebrating. "This is ridiculous!" Valentina's voice cut through the noise like a knife. "This is my wedding day, my moment!" Her face was red with fury and embarrassment. "Sophia, how dare you orchestrate this publicity stunt to steal attention from my wedding?" The room went quiet again, but this time the silence felt uncomfortable. Gabriel set me gently back on my feet, his jaw tightening as he turned to face my cousin. "Valentina," he said calmly, but there was steel in his voice. "Sophia didn't orchestrate anything. I did. And I chose to propose here because I wanted everyone to see what I saw, what real grace and dignity look like." He turned back to me, taking my hands in his. "Sophia has spent her entire life putting others first, caring for children, being kind even when others weren't kind to her. She came to your wedding today hoping to celebrate your happiness despite how she's been treated. That's the kind of person she is. I could see some of the guests nodding, and I realized many of them had witnessed the snide comments and cold treatment I'd received all evening. Celine, who had been making cutting remarks about me all night, was now staring at my engagement ring with naked envy. Several of the socialites who had snubbed me earlier were suddenly trying to catch my eye, their expressions shifting from condescension to desperate friendliness. But Valentina wasn't done. "She's nobody special," she said, her voice shaking with rage and humiliation. "She's just a librarian who lives in a studio apartment. She shops at thrift stores and takes public transportation. She's not good enough for someone like you." The words hit me like physical blows. Every insecurity I'd ever had about my modest lifestyle came rushing back. But before I could respond, Gabriel stepped forward. "You're wrong," he said firmly, his voice carrying throughout the ballroom. "Sophia is everything special. She's kind when she could be bitter. She's generous when she has little to give. She finds joy in helping children learn instead of chasing material possessions." He addressed the entire room now, his voice ringing with conviction. "I've sat across boardroom tables from billionaires, politicians, and celebrities. I've been pursued by women who wanted my money, my connections, my status. But I've never met anyone who impressed me as much as Sophia did when I watched her spend 3 hours making sure forgotten children felt loved and important." The applause started again, but this time it felt different. People weren't just clapping for the drama of the proposal. They were clapping for the truth of what Gabriel had said. As the evening continued, everything changed. Instead of celebrating Valentina's wedding, everyone wanted to meet me and Gabriel. People who had ignored me or looked down on me all evening were suddenly trying to introduce themselves, hoping to get in good with the woman who had captured the heart of one of the most powerful men in the country. But the approval of people who had judged me based on my clothes and bank account meant nothing now. I had found someone who loved me for exactly who I was. 6 months later, Gabriel and I had our own wedding. It was smaller than Valentina's extravaganza, held in the garden of the children's library where I worked, surrounded by the kids I taught to read and their families. Emma, the little girl from the foundation event, was my flower girl, and her radiant smile meant more to me than all the designer flowers in the world. I kept working at the library because I loved it, but Gabriel's resources allowed us to expand our programs dramatically. We started mobile libraries for underserved communities, created reading programs for children in hospitals, and established scholarships for kids who couldn't afford books. The work became even more fulfilling because now I had the means to help on a scale I'd never dreamed possible. As for Valentina, it took her several months to swallow her pride and apologize. She eventually admitted that seeing me find such happiness had forced her to examine her own values and priorities. Her marriage to the older businessman lasted less than 2 years. It turned out that a relationship based solely on financial security wasn't as fulfilling as she'd thought. We rebuilt our relationship slowly, and when Gabriel and I celebrated our first anniversary, Valentina was there, genuinely happy for us at last. Looking back, I realized that night wasn't just about finding love. It was about discovering my own worth. I had always known I was a good person, but I had let society's obsession with wealth and status make me question whether kindness and compassion were enough. Gabriel fell in love with me not despite my humble circumstances, but because of the values those circumstances had taught me. He saw past the second-hand dress and budget shoes to the heart underneath. The truth is, we all have intrinsic value that can't be measured in dollars or designer labels. Some people spend their entire lives trying to impress others with what they own, but the most impressive thing about anyone is how they treat people who can't do anything for them in return. Emma, the shy little girl from the foundation event, is 10 now and one of my most enthusiastic library volunteers. She helps me read to the younger children every Saturday, and her confidence has blossomed beautifully. That one afternoon I spent with her changed both our lives in ways neither of us could have imagined. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I'd left Valentina's wedding early like I wanted to. If I'd let the cruel comments and obvious dismissal drive me away, I would have missed the most beautiful moment of my life. It just goes to show that sometimes when you're facing your darkest hour, the universe is preparing to give you something extraordinary. Gabriel always says he's the lucky one, but I know we're both fortunate. Lucky to have found each other, lucky to have learned that real love sees past the surface, and lucky to know that genuine kindness always finds its way back to you in the end. Our story proves that no matter how others might try to diminish you, your true worth will always shine through to the right person. The people who matter will see past your circumstances to your character, and those who can't aren't worthy of your concern anyway. What did you think of Sophia's incredible transformation from invisible wallflower to beloved fiancé? Have you ever experienced people treating you differently based on money or status? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story of true love recognizing true worth gave you chills, smash that like button and share it with someone who needs to remember their value isn't determined by their bank account. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more amazing stories of love, conquering all the shallow judgments of the world. Remember, your worth isn't measured by what you own, but by who you are when no one important is watching. Stay tuned for more incredible tales of justice, love, and people getting exactly what they deserve.